Shalom, how's everyone doing? Today's day 38 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We'll be learning Siman Seif Ches. Let's begin. Ad kama marchikin. How far do we have to distance ourselves from tzoa when we're saying Devarim Shebekdusha? Haisa tzoa me'achorav. If the tzoa is behind him, tzarech laharchik mimakom shekol hareach arba amos. He has to distance himself 4 amos from where the smell is. Va'afilu imhu einu merech. Even if he personally can't smell. He has to distance himself as if he could smell. Let's say the tzoa doesn't smell. It's enough if he distances himself 4 amos from the actual tzoa. If the tzoa is in front of him, he has to distance himself in a way that he can't see it. Even if it's at night when he can't see it anyway, he still has to distance himself the same distance he would if he could see it, as if he could see it during the day. Vim he minat stadin. If the tzoa is to his side, he has to treat it like it's in front of him. So he could just turn himself so it will be behind him. Okay. So obviously, as we've been discussing, one is not allowed to say Devarim Shebekdusha in the presence of tzoa. And we learned this from the pasuk, V'haya machanecha kadosh. Right, just like when they came back from war, they came to the camp. They couldn't have tzoa in the camp. So to us, in our camp, when we say Devarim Shebekdusha, we cannot have tzoa in our presence. So the question really has to be, what's considered your camp? Right, what's considered a person's camp? Right, we'll throw out one shita. This is one shita the Gemara brings. It's the shita of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. He says, Kula Beisa Kadal Amos. He says the entire house, which really means the entire room is considered a person's camp. So for example, according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar, if there's tzoa anywhere in the room, it doesn't matter if you're facing it, or if it's behind you, one is not allowed to say Devarim Shebekdusha. We do not hold like that shita. Right? It's talking about, there's one Rishon, the Ritzgeas, he holds like that shita, but we do not hold like that shita. So what do we hold like? So what's very clear from the Gemara in Brachos Chafei, that if the tzoa is within Dalet Amos of you, if it is within 4 amos, then that's considered your machane, and it would be a problem to say Devarim Shebekdusha. Right? If you look at the Pri Megadim in Siman, he has a very nice, he summarizes the entire sugya of the sugya of tzoa very well, and he writes there this whole idea that Dalet Amos is asur to say Devarim Shebekdusha. That's because Kol Toch Dalet Amos Chaniya Shel Adamhu. Right, that's considered a person's camp. Right, a person, his Dalet Amos, that's considered where he is. Okay, so that makes sense. That's why if you're within Dalet Amos of tzoa, you cannot say Devarim Shebekdusha. Fine, that's great. But then we have this other shear of Melo Einav, right? Melo Einav, right? If you're able to see the tzoa, that is also going to have a problem, even if it's Michutz Dalet Amos. So the question is why? So we'll say maybe one pshat, and we'll say why that pshat is probably not the correct pshat. One pshat is maybe there's a separate din that actually when one is saying Devarim Shebekdusha, even if it's not in your camp, let's say it's not in your Dalet Amos, maybe there's just a separate issue that you're not allowed to say Devarim Shebekdusha if you could actually physically see tzoa. However, there are 2 questions on this approach. One is we've discussed an idea that there's something called tzoa ba'ashashis. Right? Let's say you have a piece of tzoa, you cover it with even glass. That's okay, you can say Devarim Shebekdusha now. So it would be very hard to say that there's this separate idea that you're not allowed to say Devarim Shebekdusha if you can actually see tzoa, even if it's not in your Dalet Amos, because we have an idea that you could just block it with glass, and that's good, even though you could see it. Second, why this approach doesn't seem to be that correct is because there's a Yerushalmi. There was this Rabbi Ilah, he was sitting with his friends, and they wanted to learn Torah, and he said to them, can we learn Torah right now? Right? What was he asking? The Yerushalmi says that it was night, and there was tzoa in the distance, like the close distance, but it was night right now, so they couldn't see it. So maybe they could actually say Devarim Shebekdusha. But then he said, we can't, because if it was day right now, we'd be able to see it, and even though we personally can't see it, it still would be a problem. So that's why it's hard to say that the problem is seeing the tzoa, because we have these 2 proofs, not like that. So the Pri Megadim suggests 2 options, and he says one, either true on a D'oraisa level we only care about Dalet Amos, right? Because the Dalet Amos, that's the camp of a person. Okay, so why do we care about seeing it? So we care about seeing it. That's a Gezerah Derabanan, maybe. Maybe it's a Derabanan, because we're going to come to say Devarim Shebekdusha within the 4 Amos. Okay, that's one approach. Or the second approach is no, it's all Deraisa. And there are two things that could put Soa in your camp. Either it being in your Dalet Amos, or seeing it. Right? Because the Pri Megadim uses the Lashon that anything you could see, anything that you have the ability to see. Right? Obviously, the case of the night, you can't actually see it, but you have the ability to see it. That's considered a person's camp. That's considered a person's camp, even though it's outside Dalet Amos. Okay, fine. So those are two approaches. However, we do have to quote the Rashba, right? Even though I said as a Devar Pashut that there's no problem as long as it's out of your location. There's no problem of actually seeing that. So when you say Devarim Shebekdusha, the Rashba disagrees. The Rashba says no. There's two things. One is that, as the pasuk says, your camp has to be holy, so Tzoa has to be out of your camp. Fine. But also, there's another part of the pasuk. It says, Lo yiravicha evras davar. You cannot see a matter of nakedness. Okay, so if you look in the Rosh Hashanah, it says, yeah, that's talking about you're not allowed to say Devarim Shebekdusha if there's something naked in front of you, right? That's for sure halacha, but that has nothing to do with Tzoa. Nothing to do with Tzoa. The Rashba says, no, even though it's talking about nakedness, it applies to Tzoa also. So he says there's two halachos. One is Tzoa can't be in your camp, and second, you can't see Lo Yaravecha. You can't even see it. You can't see Tzoa when you're saying Devarim Shebekdusha. And this comes out in the following case, right? And it's a case we've actually quoted before, right? Let's say you're in a room, and there's Tzoa in the room. So obviously it's Tzoa in the room, and it's in front of you. L'kul hayam, you can't say Devarim Shebekdusha. But let's say it's in front of you, but it's on a platform that's 10 tefachim high, 4 tefachim wide. So in halacha, if something's 10 tefachim high, 4 tefachim wide, it's considered in a totally separate room, right? So what would the halacha be? So the Rosh says, let's think about it. This Tzoa is not in your machane, right? It's not, because usually, even though we have this idea that if it's kimlo einov, if your eyes could see something, that's considered in your machane. That's if it's in the same room, but if it's in a totally different room, this halachically this is considered a different room. Who cares as it's kimlo einav, and you could in fact say Devarim Shebekdusha. But the Rashba says no. The Rashba says that even though it's considered halachically in a different room, but there's a separate idea that if you could see it, it's asur to say Devarim Shebekdusha. So now we have two questions on the Rashba though. Right, because I said two great proofs that there's no problem of seeing Tzoa. Right, one was the case of the Ashash, it's the glass, and the second was the Yerushalmi. Right, so the Pri Megadim deals with the case of the glass, and he says, it's a good question, but what can we do? The pasuk says, Chisisa seyasecha. The pasuk says all you have to do is cover your Tzoa, and you can say Devarim Shebekdusha. So the Rashba says, yeah, usually we have a general rule that you can't see Tzoa when we say Devarim Shebekdusha, but there's a pasuk that says you could cover it, so you can't go against the pasuk. Second, what about the Yerushalmi? What about the Yerushalmi that says at night it's still a problem of saying Devarim Shebekdusha? According to the Rashba, if it's night, it should be okay. However, the answer becomes clear from a Magen Avram. Not everyone accepts this Magen Avram, but the answer comes clear because of the Magen Avram. Right? The Magen Avram is talking about this case. You have the Tzoa, it's on a platform, 10 tefachim high, 4 tefachim wide. So, according to the Rosh, right, it's in a different room, you could say Devarim Shebekdusha. According to the Rashba, sorry, it's still a problem. But the Magen Avram says, but let's say it's this platform, 10 tefachim high, 4 tefachim wide, and you close your eyes. So the Magen Avram says, even though Rashba would agree, you could say Devarim Shebekdusha. Everyone asks, what we're talking about, the Yerushalmi? So if you look in the Machzis HaShekel, he explains it very clearly. The Machzis HaShekel says, according to the Rashba, there's two dinim. One din is, there's something called V'haya Machanecha Kadosh. Your camp has to be holy. What's included in your camp? Either if it's within 4 amos of you, or if it's kimlo einav, right? If you're able to see it and it's in the same room, that's also considered your camp, right? And that's what he says the case of the Yerushalmi is. Right? The case of the Yerushalmi is, it was in the room, they just couldn't see it because it was night. There was no lights. So that's going to be a problem of V'haya Machanech HaKadosh. You have to have a holy camp, their camp was not holy. But in a case when it's mamish in a different room, or it's on this elevated platform, it's on a different room, so V'haya Machanech HaKadosh, your camp has to be holy. Your camp is holy. It's not in your camp anymore. It's in a totally different room. We have this separate din. There's a new din of Ervas Davar that you can't see that you can't see the tzoa. So this guy's great. He's not seeing the tzoa. So check, it's not v'hayimachin kadosh. It's not a problem of v'hayimachin kadosh because it's not in the machne. And two, he's physically not seeing it. So this guy would be good to go. Okay.